and welcome to another episode of the Exertis Broadcast Podcast. I am so excited to be here with everybody and be here with my good friend, Rob Harris of Furman, now Nice, I guess. It's Nice company, or Furman?
Yeah, the company that owns Furman is a company called Nice. And now I've always been known as being a nice guy anyway. But now it's really to heart at this point.
Exactly.
And so, it's a great name in there for sure. And I've been with the Furman brand for 20 years. So I've seen it go through a bunch of different changes. And this one I'm really excited about because I found that we have a new home for sure. This Nice company is a manufacturer. They make some awesome stuff. And that's going to allow the Furman brand to come out with some even more cool stuff in the near future, I'm sure. So
that's excellent.
Very excited to be a nice guy.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure there are so many little puns that can go along with that. That's awesome. Yeah, I love your email. Your email address too, niceforyou.com. That's great.
Right. I'm nice for you, but I'm also nice for me. Yeah. So that's a whole different story. But, I think it does everybody good if we're all nice to each other.
Exactly. The world would be a much better place.
Absolutely.
So, not everybody, I'm a musician, you're a musician, as everybody can see from your amazing background there. We're going to have to talk about some of those guitars for sure. But, obviously we know in the music world, we know that power conditioners, and we know Furman specifically is sort of the top dog when it comes to power conditioners in a musical sense. But maybe if you just want to talk a little bit about what power conditioners are, maybe for people who are not in the music world or just aren't familiar with power conditioners in general, just give us a scoop. So what are power conditioners?
You bet. Yeah. So when you talk about power conditioning, that's a different level than, people will think of, hey, do you have a power conditioner? And the first thing they think of is, oh yeah, I've got something that has a bunch of plugs on it and I plug a bunch of things into it. It's a nice plastic strip and it plugs in the wall and that does all this great stuff. Well, unfortunately, it does not do great things other than give you a way to distribute more plugs out of the wall than the one that was in the wall in the first place to be able to plug into. It gives you, a distribution point per se. Now, when we talk about power conditioning, we're talking about not only being able to distribute the power, but also being able to clean up the noise on the AC side. So getting rid of EMI and RFI. So that's electromagnetic interference and radio frequency interference. We also talk about, protecting your equipment, your long-term investment, not only from, those catastrophic events that can literally take out all of your equipment at once, but also to create longevity for your equipment. So power conditioning in itself absorbs the energy of the little small spikes and surges. If you've ever looked up at a light bulb and you've seen the light bulb flicker because your refrigerator came on or anything like that, there's a good way to know that there's something happening on that AC line. And if you allow your sensitive audio and video equipment to be subject to that, it's going to take away the life expectancy of that equipment. It's not going to allow it to last long. You'll end up losing a lot of that life expectancy. And, with that, you end up replacing your equipment a lot more than you should. I've had some Furman things plugged into Furman, I should say, for 15 years.
Wow.
That is still chugging along strong.
Damn.
And it's because of the power conditioning aspect. Yeah. So it's not just, power distribution, but it's also about conditioning that power and making sure that you clean up and that you're protecting your investment as well. And then there's different levels beyond that too, where you get into things like voltage regulation and our wonderful power factor technology. Those are enhancements beyond what just our power conditioning does at that point. And not everybody needs a voltage regulator. It's nice to have, of course. And what a voltage regulator does is it takes, that 120 volts in the US would be the nominal voltage coming out. If you have that drop down to say, 115 or go above 125, your equipment's going to be okay with it, but it works a little harder to do its job. And what voltage regulation does is it takes it back to that 120 spot. So it actually stabilizes that voltage coming in. And what that means to your equipment is that it gets to work and be happy without struggling because of the voltage that's being fed to it not being correct. And it's really important in the AV world, especially if you're doing live sound and you're running off of generators anywhere. Those generators, as soon as you have a fuel clog or anything like that, you get a little hiccup in there, and that has a tendency to create more high voltage or low voltage. And it could be for just an instance, or it could be a prolonged amount. And so what the regulator does is it takes that. We can take anything from 97 to 137 volts on the US voltage regulators and put out 115 to 125 to your equipment. So it really stabilizes your environment in that point. And what that does is it takes away lockups on your equipment. You know, if you've ever seen the blue screen of death, which I'm sure, you know, I'm kind of dating myself a little bit.
No, they still happen. They still happen. It just looks a little better now. Like they've cleaned it up. It's not as scary now.
The splash screen's a little happier.
Just a little bit. Yeah. It just says, oops, something went wrong.
Right. Totally. And that's exactly it, you know? And a lot of times it's spikes and surges that can cause that too. It doesn't have to be a prolonged under or over voltage where a regulator needs to be into play, but having surge suppression there that can take care of those fast anomalies coming through like a nanosecond, you know, kind of blip that happens. Those can cause memory lockups. And that's essentially what's happening is your processor locks up or the memory locks up because it saw an anomaly that it didn't like. And it said, oh, sorry, something went wrong.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you mentioned all that because it's like we just had a really huge storm here, and you know, power went out. There were there were surges, there were spikes and things like that. But we had a piece of gear that was specifically for this, for being able to protect from it. Now the piece of gear didn't, in this case, and it wasn't Furman, but in this case, the piece of gear didn't pull through, but it did its job and saved all of the gear on the other side of it. So, it only takes one time for a surge, on an unprotected circuit. And it only takes one surge to completely go beyond what the piece of gear that it's plugged into is able to handle. It only takes one time for it to do that, and then you're out, and then you're wishing that you had Furman power, behind it. So no, I do have a question in this regard. Like I said, since you and I are both musicians, it's like we understand that that noise filtering is really great for guitar amps. It's like protects from different other devices that might be on the circuit and stuff like that. But specifically, some people might be thinking it's like, well, that's not really necessary in a broadcast space per se. Like I'm not in a recording studio. So what would you say to people like that are more in the broadcast space and may not be seeing it in the same way in the way of the noise filtering?
Well, the first thing I would say is, hey, Jordan, what's that thing you're talking to in front of yourself?
That's exactly right. I've got
a microphone, my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
And guess what? All these things relate. And it's not just a matter of recording into, like what we're doing now, recording a podcast, but it's also about performance of equipment from day to day, delivering that media at that point as well. And, it lives really, anything with a plug is going to benefit from power conditioning by all means. And it doesn't have to be in a recording environment. It can, and when we talk about the broadcast world, those are subject to some of the most craziest remote spots that you can see at any point in time. But there's a lot of trucks that roll out that depend on, the power at the location when, someone's doing a news feed or when someone's doing, on the set of the latest, Marvel movie, any of those things, you can run into power anomalies that your equipment is not going to like. And as, the 98% of the, I don't know why I went with that number, but pretty much everything's digital nowadays.
Right.
I mean, it's almost 100% digital, unless you look behind me, you'll see some nice tube amps and stuff like that. But, in the AV world, everything's pretty much digital at this point. I mean, every once in a while, you might have somebody that's actually filming on, when I say filming, recording video on actual film, which is pretty cool because it does have in my opinion, has a different look. But I'm one of those crazy savant guys that loves records and all that. So, and I know there's a lot of you out there, so don't everybody laugh. I don't know if Jordan does, but
records, absolutely. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I bought vinyl before I had a record player, and I still actually don't have a record player at the moment. So, but I bought vinyl anyway. So yeah.
But it's so much fun because it's a story within, it's its own book essentially, and yeah, I won't get into the kids nowadays and the whole digital world, but because I'm in the digital world as well. I mean, I was, into gaming for quite a while too. And I'm loosely into gaming, but I watch other people gaming.
We're going to have to talk about that after the podcast. Okay. Nice.
Look out. Yeah. I mean, I didn't wrap into an Oculus yet. I'm kind of waiting for the new Oculus to come out.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I've played around with one, but I'm kind of waiting for the new professional.
Wait for the new one. Yeah. If you've got the budget for it, definitely wait for the new one. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'll be saving up for that too. I mean, my budget is spent on guitars at this point, as you can see.
Yeah. Whose isn't at this point if you're a musician?
Recording equipment. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's all part of the fun is, these different tools that we have here. I mean, even,
exactly.
Something like this that is, literally an acoustic guitar, but it's got its own pre that's built into its digital that gives you multitude of different acoustic sounds coming out.
And voicings,
the different voicings that this particular Fender came out with these models. And there's been other, modelers that are out there and whatnot, but they've gotten really good.
But by the way, don't call your Exertis broadcast representative and ask for a Fender acoustic guitar. We can't provide that for you just yet. Yeah. I was sort of thinking about how Furman might be able to fit in with certain, specifically certain products. So the two that we've tested here and actually use are the Classic series and the Prestige series. And both of those are just amazing. There's one other one that I want to talk about, but I'll talk about it after the Classic and Prestige. But just for those that aren't familiar with the Furman individual lines, can you give just a brief overview of the difference between those two? Because those are pretty arguably some of your most popular, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, so we start out with the base, the Classic series stuff, and we actually make, even below that, we make what's called our Merit series, which is a sacrificial design, and which, you just mentioned you had, a different, not a Furman, even though we are the Kleenex of power conditioning. I've had people go, hey, come here and check out my Furman that's not working. I'll look at it and I go, you know what the problem is? And they go, no. I go, well, it's not a Furman. So, but we make stuff that, absolutely that is sacrificial. And then when you get into the Classic series, you get in what's called our SMP technology.
Right.
So on the surge suppression side, that's a series multi-stage protection. So it's a series of components that can slow down and dissipate the energy without your equipment ever seeing those surges or the Furman going down in the process. We've made a design that doesn't compromise the surge suppression afterwards. And that's one thing that's in the Classic series. Another component to the protection side is something called EVS, or extreme voltage shutdown. And what that's for is an extended over voltage or under voltage. And what they're designed to do is if your voltage goes high and stays high, you want to cut off before things start to cook. So SMP is for that bullet, that fast nanosecond coming through. You want something that's going to go ping, Superman.
Exactly.
and then you've got that extreme voltage shutdown. So when the wave comes up, then Superman comes up and puts the wall up and goes, nah, you're not getting past me. And then as the water subsides, okay, we can pass now that everything's safe again. So that's what SMP and EVS is. And then on the other part of the conditioning aspect is also what's called lift, or linear filtration. And what that is that's an EMI and RFI noise filtration that takes the EMI and RFI starting at a subwoofer frequency, moving out through the full audio bandwidth, and then going out through high def video. And what it's designed to do is to take that noise floor that's there. So you have this noise, buzz, pops, and clicks that's going on here. That buzz and pops and clicks, when coupled into your audio and video equipment, starts creating buzz and pops and clicks in your headset. The other thing it does, or excuse me, in your audio, the other thing it does is it also creates it takes away the contrast or let's see, the word I'm looking for. So it takes away the dynamics of the video is what happens. So it makes the blacks not truly black. So if you have an OLED screen you're looking at, it might look like a darker brown. You might not actually see a true black. And then on the white, the other aspect is it makes whites truly white. And by getting rid of that noise, and to get rid of the stuff that's after your 20 kilohertz audio bandwidth, that's where video starts.
Exactly.
Getting rid of that noise gives you your blackest blacks and your whitest whites, and then your full depth of color for all your dynamics too. Because remember, black and white are used as the dynamics for the excitement of the color that happens.
Exactly.
So with that noise that's sitting there, what we do is we lower that noise floor down. So here's a better representation. So here's your audio and video signal, and here's that noise floor. Everything above this line you're getting. Now, the bummer is everything below that line you're not seeing. So it's masking off lower frequencies. It doesn't mean you have to have this buzz sitting there that's really heavy in your audio. It could be just a light amount, or you like I said, with the blacks not being completely black and whatnot, it might be something that you don't notice right away. So when you lower that noise floor, now that wonderful audio and video signal is getting everything. It's not getting masked off by that noise that was sitting there, taking away those frequencies.
Exactly.
So with lift, then you get it because you got to play with it.
Yeah,
too,
it's been a lot of fun
as well.
Yeah, and I think that's
people don't realize. Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, no, I think you're actually absolutely right. That is one thing that people don't realize, and it's sort of one of those, specifically if you're in the pro AV world, it's like there's always kind of in the back of your mind, like if there's some sort of gremlin that is in there, you think, is it a power issue? Is it a power surge? I'm not entirely sure. Is it interference in the power somehow? And it's kind of difficult, like when you're just using normal, extension cables and stuff like that, and just normal, surge protectors, and gear like that. And it doesn't have the extra technology that Furman has put into their products. It's sort of anybody's guess. It's not easy to be able to, to figure out if it's a power if it's a power issue or not when you're using unfiltered power. And to me, it's such an easy thing to be able to integrate, some of the other products that, that we sell. Obviously, it's like, it just by virtue of what they are, it takes more to integrate them into workflows. But with Furman, it's just like every single rack should in my opinion, should have Furman gear in it. The very first thing in your rack should always be a Furman power supply. It's really, it's no more, complicated than that. With the circuit isolated banks is another really great, great feature to be able to say that it's like, if I know that there's maybe potentially an older piece of gear, or something, or something that's, that's analog that I'm putting in there that, like I said, that might be a little bit noisy. I can put that on its own circuit isolated outlet
bank. The bank.
One of the banks, that won't touch these other ones, or I can say it's like, well, I want all of my speaker monitors, I want all of those on one, but then I want, the audio interface and other audio stuff on one, and then maybe the video stuff on another, just to be able to say that I've separated out the power to where I know that they're not going to, there's not going to be any crosstalk between them, which is really great.
That's exact.
But the other part that I did want to talk about too is that I think is really valuable in addition to the standard classic and prestige that are more just your standard. It powers the device type of functionality. Like that is the main thing. Right. Obviously, there's all the rest of the stuff that goes into that, but at the end of the day, what is it doing? Its main functionality is it's powering the device. But one thing that I think people don't necessarily think about is power sequencing, which is incredibly important, especially for video. So, for those of you that don't know what power sequencing is that, in like I said, in the classic and prestige series, what you plug in your gear and it works like any normal outlet would, that as soon as you plug it in, it instantaneously has power. But with power sequencing, what that allows you to do is that allows you to be able to say, I don't want this. And when I first turn on this Furman piece of gear, like the M8S, for example, that one allows you to be able to say, okay, so for this first bank, or for this, I think it actually goes down. It is banks. It's not outlets for that one, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So for this first bank,
there's 2 outlets per bank.
Exactly. So these first 2 outlets will turn on first and wait a certain amount of time, and then be able to have the next set of outlets turn on and then wait, and be able to step your power on instead of all of them on at the exact same time.
Right.
And actually, do you want to jump in and talk about why that might be advantageous specifically?
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, it does pertain to a lot of gear. Just like if you've ever, you've been in, a recording studio of any sorts, whether you're doing video or audio. If you've ever had your monitors, your near field audio monitors on, and you turn on your computer and all of a sudden you hear this pop, well, what's happening there is you have a signal that comes as soon as the audio portion of the laptop or your IO comes into play. It sends a little bit of signal down the line, and that's what creates that little pop out of your speakers. Now, you don't think much about it, but it actually starts wearing away at the voice coil in the speakers, and you can actually burn out your voice coils after doing that for quite a while. It's not just about, the annoyance of the pop. It's about, making sure that your near field monitors stay in optimum performance. So, in the studio world, it's very important to stagger that on. Now, imagine if you were at a stadium level and you were doing that, and you've got,
oh my gosh,
massive hanging arrays with, a row of subwoofers. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you've probably blown about $50,000 worth of speakers right there. And,
easily.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard for someone to go get the B rig. And
exactly.
At that point in time. I mean, those guys are at a different level. Don't get me wrong. They know what they're doing. But,
totally.
But, that sequencing aspect, I mean, it's utilized a lot through mid-level churches and different venues where you're going to see live music and whatnot, and it's designed for ease of use, really. So someone could come in and turn on their system. I actually have mine set up right now, and that's what I do. I just come in and I turn on. I have a CN 1800S, which is, it's like an M8S, but it has SMP lift and EBS in it. So
nice.
The M8S is sacrificial design and standard filtration. Still does a really good job for a budget. I just, I'm the Furman guy, so of course I'm going to have the pro level guys that my setup here,
of course.
But it makes it really nice. You come to flip a switch and everything turns on nice and easy, and nothing pops, and you've got that whole aspect. Now, you were asking me, I'm going to jump off to the side a little bit, of what the Prestige series gives you beyond the Classic series.
Right.
So when you go into the Prestige series, everything I mentioned in the Classic series, SMP, EBS, and Lift, that's all under the hood of the Prestige series. Now, when you're in the Prestige series, now that's where you get into voltage regulation, as well as something we have called power factor technology, which is something that really will make a night and day difference in your audio and video system.
Right.
The design of this capacitor network that's in there, it makes everything breathe easy without fighting each other. So it takes away current compression. And then because of that capacitor network, you actually end up lowering your noise floor another minus 10 dB in the EMI and RFI over what Lift does. So it actually makes your noise floor even quieter if possible. And then when you go to our P1800, so it's a P1800 PFR, so power factor. And then we have what's called a P1800 AR, which is your automatic regulator at that point. That's the one that takes the voltage and stabilizes the voltage. And then there's our P2400 IT, which is an isolation transformer. And what I'm getting at with that is that they're like a Classic series, but now you've stacked in an enhancement at that point, like power factor or an isolation transformer or voltage regulation. Now with me, I actually in my studio here have an isolation transformer that feeds all of my equipment. And then I have power factor unit that feeds my amplification. And then I use the sequencer to sequence everything up and down from there. So I'm isolating the power entirely and getting rid of any sort of anomalies that could come across there with the isolation transformer. I'm allowing the power factor technology to allow my amplification to breathe easy and to give me the full detail and depth of my audio. And then with that, I'm staggering on my power to make it just an ease of use thing. When I come in, I can fire up the entire studio really easily.
Exactly.
So,
and that's the nice part about this is that it really, again, it's the versatility of Furman power, of being able to sort of pick what it is that you need specifically. Like you said, that it's like maybe not every either broadcast studio or not every church may need the full prestige line that has everything in it. It's like that may not be necessary. It's like, but you can go, go ahead.
You can pick and choose. Yeah. But you might have noticed that when I mentioned that, you didn't hear me talk about a voltage regulator here.
Right.
So I didn't need to apply that because my voltage here is fairly stable, other than the outage that happens every once in a while. And I do have our F1500 UPS, battery backup that I have all my, my drives on and my, my video monitors and anything that if there's a hiccup in a power outage, that I don't lose any data. I can continue recording and I can finish up whatever I'm doing at that point in time. Yeah, but regulator isn't always needed, really.
Well, and that is one thing though that you mentioned though that we didn't mention yet. So we've talked about the most basic in the way of the classic and the prestige, in the way of functionality, but then also talked about power sequencing. But that is one thing that is huge that I think we absolutely have to talk about is what you guys have in the way of battery backups. That there's no situation. I mean, we just had a huge storm. There was a power outage, and because my computer, I didn't put it on a Furman battery backup, it shut off, and that was wasted time of having to, completely, like it was only a momentary blackout. But if I had a battery backup, to be able to power that on, and keep that, powered on, that would have been a lot better. Do you have a favorite of the Furman battery backups that you would recommend?
Well, we're actually down to, we only have one offering at this point, and that's called the F1500 UPS. We did have 1,000 VA, but we recently discontinued that.
Oh, that's good news to know. Okay.
Okay. So spread that out, kids. You won't be able to find one. I know you're going to want one, but you're not going to be able to get it. But the 1500 is actually better in a sense than the 1000 was. It's a larger capacity. So you have 1500 VA worth of stuff you can plug in, which is really about 7.5 amps, which is a lot. My whole studio that I have here, I'm running at about 2 amps for the entire studio that I have here. But what's different about, because there's a lot of battery backup manufacturers out there, and they're good manufacturers out there that build really cool stuff. But our designs are designed for AV equipment, meaning that they actually have SMP in there. So it's got a non-sacrificial surge protection built into it. It's got that EVS extreme voltage shutdown for that blip that happens. It's also important to not cook your UPS in the process. So you want to disconnect if that happens at that point. And then they have that lift filtration. So they're designed to give you the optimum performance out of your audio and video equipment as well. And then with ours, they're line interactive. And so when it goes from going to work off the batteries and off the inverter, it's less than 4 milliseconds. I want to say it's super fast.
Wow.
Nothing should ever have an issue with it. Yeah,
that's incredible.
There's a switch time on pretty much stuff, and I've tested it on everything. Apple seems to be the most sensitive devices for power supply, so I always use that as a testing ground. And no issues. It's seamless, And when it switches over, it actually goes. It starts utilizing true sine wave technology. So it's a pure sine wave. So you would never have any sort of not only anomaly in the switchover if you were in the middle of say recording your last vocal take and you were right in the middle of that sweet note, you're going to be able to use that whole take.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an issue by any means.
And that's incredible.
And that'd be the same thing if you were editing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. A great offerings and stuff. Super tough stuff. The only thing I would recommend, a lot of people don't remind themselves about, is that it is a battery backup. Batteries wear out over time. I don't care what it is. Swap those batteries out every 2 to 3 years max. We say 2 years because that's what we guarantee them for. If you swap the batteries out, these things will run forever. Mine's over 11 years old.
Wow.
The one I have in here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then especially, and then especially in the broadcast world too, that it's like, a lot of times people want certain, and not even just in the broadcast world, but also in the IT centric world. For corporations, it's like a lot of people want to be able to have the capability of being able to control everything remotely somehow, monitor it remotely, be able to control it remotely somehow. But the cool part about the 1500 is Blue Bolt, which is obviously in the Panamax line, which it's sort of it's separate from Furman, but in a way. But has Blue Bolt technology in it, which allows you to be able to, from anywhere in the world, log into a web interface and be able to see all of the things that are plugged in, what each of those outlets are, what those outlets are drawing, and be able to, to shut them off, turn them on, all remotely.
Power cycle things,
exactly.
Locked up devices. If you've got something where, especially if you're doing commercial install kind of things, and you have maybe a digital signage video wall and one panel keeps locking up, there's potentials there for just having to reboot that panel.
Right.
If you're doing a sports bar and you've got a multitude of different streamers going on, there's, those will lock up and you'll get, the bartender or the manager of the place calling you back and going, hey, what do I do about this? And you go, hey, wait just a minute. Let me pull that up on my phone and click and... Is it on? Yeah. Is it running? Yeah. There you go. All right. Thank you.
Exactly.
You didn't have to roll a truck or anything. And it's just a card. It's just a card you slide in the back that makes it either IP controllable, so you can use it with other control systems, or you get Blue Bolt for free. So Blue Bolt's a cloud-based software service, and you can do everything right from the Blue Bolt cloud.
And if you're a serial junkie, they do have that card also available. If you really want to go 232, you can definitely do that as well.
It comes with cereal right in the box,
Absolutely.
And that sounds funny to say. It's making me hungry for some
cereal box. Oh, I know.
Right
Raisin. Did you say Raisin Bran? Oh my goodness. No.
Well, I didn't want to give up the Fruity Pebbles.
No, it's Cinnamon Toast Crunch or bust. I don't care what anybody says. Absolutely.
Man.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Definitely. But you have to eat it for whatever reason. You have to eat it as soon as the milk goes on Cinnamon Toast Crunch, you got to eat it instantaneously. If you leave it for even just like a minute, it's just little mushy, gross things. So yeah. Oh man. But the other, it's funny that we were talking about this, that I just saw. I walked into a pizza place. I won't say which pizza place, but they had digital signage, and I think the way that they were running it was they were using a mini PC plugged into one of them, and they had daisy chained the other TVs. What they did was their IT guy had left, and I couldn't believe this, had left their team viewer unattended access up, and had the username and password in plain text right there for the world to see. And I told them, I was like, guys, this is not good. Like, I can control your digital signage right now from my phone. And they were like, and then I was just like, don't freak out. Just like, but even then they're like, where's the remote? Can we, do we have the remote? Where can we put, it's like, so in perfect situation like that, where it's just like, easily be able to say, it's like, remote shutdown, as soon as you have a problem like that,
right,
has nothing to do with the with the untrained people on staff. It's just like, call IT, have them remote shut it down for the moment.
Right. And that's a good point. A lot of the staff, they don't have time to be trained on anything like that.
No.
And you have staff that turns over and whatnot. And so, for you to be the expert on that, if you are the installer, you're able to, that's pretty cool about Blue Bolt, is that it's free. If you buy the device, you get Blue Bolt for free.
Yeah.
So for you could charge, service contract of sorts, and it's free reoccurring monthly revenue right in your pocket
of power monitoring. Exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then it makes you a hero. You don't have to roll a truck either,
Nope.
which costs you a bunch of money. And you can also set up for self-healing. I know we're kind of going into, so I'm big on Blue Bolt because I've been since the inception of that, but you can also self-heal things. So if an IP address stops communicating on the network there, you can actually have the Blue Bolt device either cycle maybe the outlet for, say it was a modem and the modem quit
Yep.
communicating out the internet. You can actually have it just stagger on that, go ahead and, power cycle that modem. Or maybe you have a modem and router setup where you want to turn them both on and off and stagger them accordingly,
Yep.
turning
Exactly.
the modem on first and then afterwards turn the router to
Yep.
establish communication and everything. You can do that off of just one IP address. And you can do that, depending, like with the Furman, there's 4 banks on there. You can have it stagger any number of those banks for any communication. So we like to call that's self-healing. It can actually, instead of your customer calling you, you can actually have it do it in the background. They didn't even realize that it happened in the first place.
And yeah, there's a lot of really cool, like I said, specifically IT centric areas that this could, that Furman can definitely just fall right into place, and that's perfect with any, with any rack. It's like really, I mean, same thing with certain encoders. One of the things that we run into sometimes where it's like, well, did you power on the encoder before you gave it a signal to encode? In situations like that, where it's like, well,
Right.
if I know that the camera is, a specific resolution, but the encoder doesn't necessarily know that, there are situations where it's like, well, hold on, we need to turn off the encoder turn off both first, turn the camera on first, then give the encoder a chance to be able to say, oh, this is the type of resolution it needs to get, and then do it. Doesn't always happen, but it's a situation where it's like, that's something that if we got a call from a customer and they were asking, they said, the encoder's not working or whatever it happens to be. One of the things we would do if we were on site is say, well, let's turn both of them off and then turn them back on again, but we'd have a way that we'd want to do it. Now they don't have to worry about it. We don't have to say, turn one off first and then turn the other one on. We don't have to do that. We can do it ourselves from our side, which is glorious. So, yeah.
Yeah, it makes it easier. Yeah, that EDIT information could get confused really quick. So
absolutely,
that, and you have to stagger them on, accordingly. Some things are finicky. I mean, all of us are. I mean, look at you with Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
I know.
How much more finicky can you get?
Exactly. There's a very
like
small window
too, but
very small window that it's good.
You're very particular, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry.
As well.
Yeah. Well, and I have to drink coconut milk.
Because most.
Oh yeah. So it's a whole thing.
I like some coconut milk. Oh yeah. No, I'm good with that. I'm usually for a latte for that.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't know for the longest time that coconut milk is literally just like ground up coconuts, like put in water. The same thing with almond milk, that it's just like we just grind it up and strain it, and that's what you got.
Yeah. Could you imagine if they were trying to milk the coconut? Sorry, it gets into bad jokes really quick there, right? How many coconuts do you have to milk to get a glass of coconut milk?
Oh my gosh!
How much wood could a woodchuck chuck?
I know.
Woodchuck could chuck wood.
Exactly. Oh my gosh! Well, we've covered a lot here today. I think we've sort of run the gamut of the things that Furman has to offer, and they're always innovating. It's like, but there is one really great part about it is that it's just like Furman's been around forever. It's like, I mean, I've every at the very least
1975.
Yeah, every audio rack that I ever see, it's just like that. Furman's in there, which is really awesome. It's the one that I personally trust for all my audio gear personally at home. So, we definitely love Furman.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
No, we thank, anybody that uses our stuff. Thank you so much for doing that. I think you already get the benefit, but still, I'm a person behind that brand. Like I said, I've been around for 20 years now, since Furman was its own company. And I put a lot of pride, and so does the rest of the folks that work at Furman. And there's a lot of pride in those products. And we want to make it to where it's ease of use and it's, it's something where you don't have to think about things like you'd mentioned earlier with power conditioning, or having these anomalies and gremlins, and you're talking about cable and power, and you're like, oh, that cable I used was probably not the best thing, and then I've got this simple plastic power strip. If you go and give yourself a good base, get a good power conditioner in there, and get yourself good quality cable, you've ran away from 90% of the anomalies that you're going to have in the first place. Now you can focus on whether, signal is coming through your DAW or not, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Like some fun we had, and I'm going to throw you under the bus because we had a little bit of that fun before we started this conversation. So, and it happens to everybody. I don't care who you are. That's the professionalism point of it, is you get it up and running and then you do the job and then you're golden. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Fun stuff,
yeah.
man.
None of them were power issues, by the way, but yes.
Nice.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for spending some time with us to talk about Furman. And it's, like I said, it's been a favorite of mine for a long time. Real quick, before we leave, what is your in your studio that you have right now? What is your favorite guitar? Go. You got to burn all the rest of them.
Like a favorite kid, buddy.
Yeah, no, the house is burning. You can save one. What are you saving?
Oh my. Well, I would say the only reason I would save this particular one is because it's probably the most expensive one, and it's one that my wife chose for me.
Aww.
And it's actually in my closet right now.
Oh, nice.
It's a Gibson custom shop Bengal Burst Les Paul.
Ooh.
That's 59 Les Paul. Ooh. So it's got it's crazy, but they're all tools. That's when you say that, it's like, the only one.
Yeah.
That's only because that's the most expensive one and my wife chose it. But, I mean, I've got a go-to Gibson Les Paul studio model it's a BFG. So look that up, kids, if you ever want to see what it is. It looks really rough on the top, but I got it and the headstock was broken. That happens a lot with Gibson.
Yeah.
I love Gibson, but it's just a normal thing.
That one little thing there, yeah.
Yep. And when I got it, I mean, I paid it was a stupid price. I got it for like $250, and I'm also kind of a closet luthier too. So I work on all my own stuff, and I've learned throughout the years. And that particular guitar, I repaired it, I customized it, did all this other things with some cool EMG pickups, and I'm a passive pickup guy too. So don't all you active and passive guys. I like everything. Like I said, it's all tools.
Yeah.
And
did you replace the neck, by the way?
No, I actually was able to repair the headstock.
Wow.
And so it's all original, and I played over 200 shows with that particular guitar.
No way. That's awesome.
And it's still going. Yeah. And it's got its own vibe. That's the thing, man. You start talking about guitars and they all have their own vibes and personalities. Like with this, when we were doing the little sound check thing, actually, I'm going to call it the Jordan Friday song, but I wrote a song in there.
It sounded great. I loved it. I loved it. It sounded awesome. It was grooving to it.
Nice. A little bit of rockabilly kind of vibe that's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I need some royalties if you're going to name it after me. So.
Oh, man.
No,
all right. Well, we'll split that $5 together. It'll be good.
Oh, well, Rob, thank you so much for this time. This has been an absolute blast. So,
Oh, my pleasure. And it's fun for me too, man.
Totally. Totally. What's the best way that people can find you? It's on social, your email. How can people reach out to you if they have questions about Furman?
Yeah, I mean, reaching out to Furman would be definitely on social. You'll find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and all the other fun. We're not. Our numbers are super low on TikTok, but hey, you never
for the
know.
moment, yeah.
That's a great place, and then of course go to furmanpower.com.
Perfect.
Is the website, and if you go through any of that, it's actually going to go through for the fine folks that will check that, and if you put in my name, they'll send it over to me. So if you ever want to ask me a question, I'm here for you. I've got 20 years experience of working with such artists as Alice Cooper to Aerosmith to Def Leppard to just name the names, Charlie Puth.
Just some local guys then, huh?
Yeah, but working with their production teams and whatnot, and their production managers and many backline technicians that are my friends as well, that also do all the video work too, the on-screen video guys, and then wonderful lighting guys too. That makes, when you go to something like that, that experience is because of the 100 people involved. And they're all great people. And matter of fact, I was just getting some emails because I sent out a happy season greetings to everybody, of course. And so I've got about 50 emails I got to read through right now.
Wow,
guys have sent out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, it's 20 years of knowing people. I mean, you're bound to have 50 out of the 500. I'll take it.
Well, and Furman is extremely lucky to have you and all your experience with that, and to have such a nice guy. Absolutely.
That's sweet. Man.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Totally.
So I'm trying to use sweet more because nice might get overused a little bit.
I know. Yeah. Especially. Yeah. Current situation. Yeah. Absolutely.
I totally kid. You can never nice me enough.
No, that sounds good. Well, hey, Rob, thank you so much. And thank you all for watching this episode of the Exertis Broadcast Podcast. Be sure to catch us for the next one. Take care.
Take care.